facilitators at Freedom's Path Recovery Society. These videos are going to be brief, explanatory videos of working through this 12 steps. Now I'm going to incorporate different things into the 12 steps that may help you, that may benefit other people more so than having less information. So we're going to start with step 1. Really what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to unpack the steps a little bit for people who maybe aren't that familiar with them, or for maybe people who just want a different perspective on them. All are welcome to watch, all are welcome to do whatever they're going to do. So in step 1, in order to unpack step 1, what I really want to look at are a couple of different concepts. Okay, so the first concept is obsession, and the second one is going to be powerlessness. Now there's obviously a few concepts in this first step that we're going to want to try to understand before we move forward, or as we're moving forward. We can still move forward. Okay, you don't have to stop just because you don't fully grasp something. But let's go into obsession first. So what does obsession look like, Darcy?
Just constant thinking about something, focusing on it.
There you go, a constant focus. Well said. Constant focus on the thing. Okay, on the thing, a thing. However it works in your brain, that's what obsession is. We're on one thing. Now some people might say they're just over-analytical. Okay, and that may be true. You may be over-analytical as well as obsessive. Okay, but what we're looking for is that obsession that takes away our energy from everything else and puts the focus on that thing. Okay, so that's really what we're trying to talk about with the obsession. That thing takes precedence. Okay, the thing takes precedence over all other wants and needs. Okay, so if you're asking yourself, well, how can somebody keep drinking if they know it's bad for them? Well, this is how they keep drinking. Okay, because it blocks out all of the negative consequences. When you get obsessed on something, the negative consequences are not in the same realm of reality, okay? So if you even think about like what you've read or heard, or maybe you've even experienced this as a victim or as someone who has stalked somebody, but you can easily take stalking, well, not easily, and I'm simplifying this, okay? But the focus of that obsession in the stalking is a person, right? So the focus of obsession with alcoholism and addiction is a chemical, or if it's process addiction, it's going to be some sort of process. Gambling, pornography, working, sex, whatever the case may be, we can easily find a new obsession. And one of the things that will happen to lots of people when they get rid of their drug of choice is they'll start obsessing about other things, right? Because they're looking for something. So anyway, we just want to understand the obsession is exactly as Darcy said. Well summarized. It's constant focus on the thing. Okay? Person, place, or thing. Okay, so powerlessness. What does powerlessness mean, Darcy?
Just that you feel like you have no control over it. Like it's compulsive.
No control. That you have to do it. No choice. Okay, and obviously no power to affect change. Okay, and that's specific though. That powerlessness is going to be specific to the thing. Okay, so we're talking about the thing of the obsession, the focal point of the obsession. The powerlessness that we're going to experience is over that focal point. Okay, so we have no power to affect change over that focal point. So in my case, I'm an alcoholic. So when I finally quit drinking in 2004, I had no power to affect change over my ability to drink or not to drink. That's what happened. To try to summarize it as quickly, well, as succinctly as possible. Let's not say quickly. But the obsession, again, is going to be the constant focus on thing, person, place, or thing. Okay. The powerlessness is going to be when we try to exert control over that obsession, and we find that we get deeper and deeper not out of it. So one of the things about powerlessness, as we exert we exert energy over the obsession, it usually gets worse. Okay? So the more we try to grip it and control it, the worse the obsession gets. Most of the time, okay? Especially when we're talking about this drug of choice, whether it be alcohol, drugs, or a process addiction. Okay? So we're just looking at the powerlessness here, so we have no control, no choice. This is why when we come in, we feel so helpless. Right? We feel I felt so helpless, and many people have felt helpless as well, is because we've given up this power. We've acknowledged in step 1 that we are powerless over this thing, that we have obsessed about, and that we now might crave. Okay? So one of the things that Darcy mentioned was craving. So what does a craving feel like? What's a craving?
Just an obsessive desire for something.
Desire for something, yeah. Okay, it's a desire for something. Now, we're going to talk about a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, etc. Okay? So we're craving something. Okay? Now, once we start obsessing about our drug of choice, if I start obsessing about alcohol too much, for an example, I will obviously potentially begin to crave it. Now, I might crave alcohol for lots of different reasons. The reason I've mentioned these different parts of our life is because we're going to be craving, desiring something either for our body, for our minds, for our emotions, or for our spirit. We want to try to find balance. So when we obsess about something, we think that that thing is going to give us balance. Therefore, a craving can get released. Then when we get the physical craving of this mental obsession, then we're in real trouble. Okay, we're in real trouble when we get to that point, because for me, if I have one drink, chances are I'm going to drink way too much, right? I'm not going to know when to stop, because that once the obsession takes over, then the craving takes place, Dave's in a bad spot at that point. So what we want to try to do is understand all these things work together, okay? The powerlessness leads to more obsession. Okay, hence that vicious cycle we're in most of the time when we try to quit. The vicious cycle being, I'm trying to quit, so I quit for a day, I drink. I quit for a day, I drink. But of course, eventually, the obsession wins. It stops being every other day. It starts being every day, or maybe worse, maybe it was every day. Now it's twice a day. Now it's 3 times a day. Whatever the case may be, if you're an addict, addicted to a stimulant of some kind, you definitely understand the craving and the obsession lasting all day to get another hit, to get another fix, right? So we just want to try to remember, the craving really is something that our body and our mind and everything about us is telling us we need, okay? It's telling us we need it in order to get rid of this, in order to feel balanced, right? Hence why, even though I'm an alcoholic, I tried to quit 100 times before I finally put it down. Okay? So, because there's a lot of this wrapped up in there, right? Now, it doesn't mean you have to understand this fully in order to move on. We're absolutely just going to continue plugging along here. So we have obsession, powerlessness, craving. And then we have the unmanageability. Okay? Now, this is going to differ a bit for everybody out there. Okay? But essentially, unmanageability are the losses. Okay? The fact that we can no longer manage our emotions, right? Maybe we can't manage our finances. We lost our job. Loss of job. Okay, maybe we quit a job because we were angry, emotions, unstable, okay, loss of family. Now, I'm not going to get into every possible loss because whatever I name, there could always be more, right? Because there's lots of stuff that can't even fathom having that people have lost. So what we want to remember, though, is that all these 4 things go together, right? The obsession, the powerlessness, the craving, and the unmanageability. Because what happens when I try to exert power over things that I have no power on is more instability. Okay? Instability is created by exerting force on something you can't control. That's all that happens is instability leads to frustration, Okay? It can lead to more chaos, control. It can lead to dishonesty. And the reason I'm going into this is because the unmanageability can grow. We can go further down. No matter how far we went, we can still go worse, right? And I know for my life, there's a lot of not yets. And I'm hoping that they don't happen, but they're not yets. Because I don't get to control them. Okay, so does that make sense, Darcy?
Yeah.
For the first four things, the powerlessness, the obsession, the powerlessness, the craving, and the unmanageability, does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And so how we're going to get this, how we're going to find these things, is we're going to take a look at our drinking and using history, or practicing history if you practice process addiction. Okay, so what we're looking at is, okay, how much did you use, gamble? What was it? I probably have this backwards because I'm not using my forms. So what was it you used? So these can even go together. You can put these first two together. What was the substance and or behavior? So substance, behavior, okay. So what was the substance, behavior, and how much, okay. How old were you, etc. And what were your feelings then and now? Okay, so usually I get people to start from their youngest to their oldest to their most recent, but depends on where you are and who you are and how this makes sense to you. To me, it just makes sense to go from the first time I drank till the last time I drank. That made the most sense for step one. What I was able to see after doing a bunch of these, sections, was I was able to see the pathology of my drinking and my use. And it wasn't just in how much I drank or how much I used. What came to be was I started to identify that I thought about it. I thought about drinking constantly. Okay? Now that doesn't mean I was constantly trying to get drunk. It means that drinking was constantly on my mind. So that means I was obsessing about it on both sides of the coin. I was obsessing how to control my drinking, especially the last 2 years of it. Every time I got up in the morning, I was like, okay, I can't drink today, that kind of thing. Okay, so when I thought about drinking constantly, that was just as important as how much I drank. Okay, because it made me realize that I'm an alcoholic. Once I really looked at how often I was thinking about drinking, thinking about controlling my drinking, and then of course also drinking. So all those times together, there was never a break, right? So for me, the obsession was constant before I put the drink down. So I just want you to think about that, because some people may not have drank very much. However, they may have experienced every time they drank, something bad happened to them, or they did something negative, right? Now, you could be a problem drinker. Nobody knows anyone else is one thing or another. This is something we have to be able to see for ourselves. The reason we do this in such a plain and transparent way is so that we try not to deceive ourselves anymore. We're trying to look at this exactly as it was, right? Like, for example, the first time I drank, I think, well, this is the first time I remember drinking. I know I tried moonshine and stuff when I was young, like really little, but I don't remember that. So I can't talk about that. But I can talk about the first time I remember drinking, which I was about 13, I think. Okay? So nothing bad happened, except I got called out. I got called out for drinking. Even though, at that time, I didn't drink very much. But I got called out for drinking, and so I think I was 13 or 14, I'm not sure. But then, that passed. I didn't think about it too much because I was worried about my older brother at that time, who was going through rehab for cocaine and stuff. So, but back then I didn't think about it until it picked up when I was 14, right? I was 14 or 15, and then it just started to escalate. So the spike would have been like this. It would have been like, oh, I had a little drink, and then it just escalated. About maybe a year after the initial drink. okay, the first half a wine cooler or whatever I drank, and somebody tried telling me I was an alcoholic. I didn't realize there was actual psychics out there. But looking back, I realized that guy was probably a psychic and also a con man. But anyway, might have been psychic. So, we're just looking at all the different things that connect to our drinking and using, right? So, for example, if you are a pornography person, okay, you're into pornography. Is pornography bad? Of course not. Neither is drinking. Neither are drugs. Drugs are fine, so long as I don't touch them. So is booze. It's great if I don't touch it, right? I have no issue with that. Just like pornography, it's not bad, but if you're using it to hurt yourself or hurt others, then maybe it's not healthy, right? But let's use it as an example, because the first time you looked at porn probably wasn't going to be a sign that you're in trouble, okay? Because most human beings, boys and girls, and everything in between, seem to have a curiosity for sex at some point in their life, whether it be the test or whatever it is. Anyway, you realize you know what I'm saying in terms of it's about the thinking that goes along with the practice. Okay? So if you're constantly, in terms of porn, trying not to do it, that's a sign. I'm not saying it's a sign that you're an addict. I'm just saying it's a sign that something might be out of place. Okay? I am in no position to judge anyone or to make labels on anyone. All I'm suggesting is that if we can write down our history, our drinking and using history, this is specific to our practicing of drinking, using, gambling, working, whatever those things are, because we're going to get into the bad stuff we did, whether we were drinking or not, later. Okay? So just for the now, we're looking at what about my past drinking and behaving makes me an alcoholic, or puts me in a position where I'm a problem drinker, where every time I drink, I'm in trouble. Right? Now, I didn't get to that point, but I did get to the point where every time I drank, I was wanting to die. Worse and worse every week that went by, until I tried a couple times in my last couple years. Okay, so thinking about step one, we're going to think about, we're looking for obsession, for powerlessness, for the craving, and the unmanageability that all that brings. Right? That's what we're looking for here when we write out a step one. Now, there's lots of formats to write out the steps. I am just going to give you the basic ones, and then whatever you decide to look up online is great. Also look up cognitive behavioral therapy, because I'm not going to get into it very much, but I use it quite a bit. I will talk a little bit about it later on in the steps. Okay, but cognitive behavioral therapy can help you 100% visualize and do all kinds of cool stuff when you're trying to quit. Okay, it can also be a good tool to just stay quit. All right, so step one, any questions? Is that explanatory?
I'm good, yeah.
Pretty good?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.